So what do I mean by the secret spells of the English language? Well, let me share with you what I call our premier life sentence. And it goes something like this. We awake each morning and go off during the weekdays to earn the living at various jobs and undertakings until we come to the weekend. And this seems perfectly acceptable to most people. However, more people die between 6 and 9 on a Monday morning than any other time of the week. So I do what I call a translation of the English language, and I spell that Trance, with the idea that words cast spells. So when you translate that life sentence, you remember that awake is a funeral party for the dead. Mourning is the state you're in when you attend a wake. And you would have to be in a weekdays to earn the living, since urns are for the ashes of the dead. We call our jobs undertakings. Job itself is a Hebrew word for persecuted. And what we get at the end of this perverse bargain with life is the weak end of the deal as we become progressively weakened ourselves. And so our most prevalent greeting to each other is hello, the reverse of which is, oh, hell. And at first, I suspected the hands of collusion entangling the language to foster illusion. And I think it's quite true that a culture's theology has a great deal to do with a word's etymology and how it evolves over time to combine incompatible meanings that may undermine the original thoughts it was meant to define. But now, I don't think it's planned, for the thing that I've found is that like concepts can gravitate toward the same sound and vibrate at the rate that our thoughts designate. Because words are electromagnetic vibrations whose fine alphabetic tintinnabulations can take on the tint of our true expectations, which they then imprint on our metal of mind, causing sounds to adhere when they're of the same kind.
Okay, so in the beginning was the Word, right? So we know that words, you've heard it before, words are spells, and that they can affect you, and that is very, very true. But it's about understanding how they affect you, because the words themselves don't have any intrinsic meaning. It's the associations that you have, the preconceptions that you have of the word. A perfect example of this, flat earth. What's the majority of the reaction of flat earth? Where's the edge? Where's the ice wall? Show me this, show me that, it's a pizza dish, it's, all these preloaded, preconceived ideas and notions of what flat earth means. Now that was done deliberately. People built an association with the words flat earth because of imagery and the programs that have been on in their life. Now, that's not the reality. And we know that. So, when people say flat earth and they say show me the edge, you would say, well, where do you get that idea from? You help people understand that it's their own preconceived notions and ideas of what that means. The same is very true for so many things in my life. In my experience recently, I'll give you another example of this. Satanism. Okay, now you hear that word and instantly you have emotions and ideas and imagery of what that means because of the generalization that's went on, because propaganda would, if it's something that they want to keep you away from, they'll term it as Satanism or evil and put it under that umbrella, which is enough for people to go, oh, that's evil, I'm not going to look at it, right? Because they have a preconceived idea and notion of what the word Satanism means. Now, I had to experience that myself. I had to go over my own internal preconceived ideas and notions of what that meant. Even when I went to buy the Satanic Bible, I went through the emotions of fear and, oh, what's this I'm getting involved in? And, oh, and then I realised that it was just a book of common sense. and that I'd got over my own fears and went and analysed it and looked at it. Now, but I realise there's a difference between criminal psychopathic behaviour of sacrifice, slaughter, all these things, to what this Satanism, entailed, the thing that I was looking at. And it's split and used in so many different ways. For me, it was, the realisation that, hang on a minute, I had these ideas about this word Satanism, and it was coming from a religious position of a god and a devil. But again, that's an externalisation of something to blame or something you're the victim of, and I'm not getting on board with that. For me, it's about taking self-control and self-responsibility. So I had to realise that words had an influence over me and a power over me. They could guide me to truth, or they could keep me in fear and avoiding certain subjects that could lead me to truth because of my preconceived notions and ideas. So I encourage you to go over terminologies and the power of word. Again, it is a spell and it's being used on you, but only when you're in ignorance of it. And understand that it's your associations of the word that are affecting you. Okay? Because it's not the word themselves that's affecting you. It's what you've believed and bought into in regards to that certain word that affects you. Okay? Just as I've pointed out, saying Satanism, and when the word's said to you, you'll have images and feelings that go with it. Now, where does that come from? It's not that the word has an actual intrinsic property that's affecting you, it's like a potion. No, it's a vibration, it's a word that you have an association with. And then the emotions and everything that happens are created by you based on your association with that word. You experience it in many different forms in your life. In movies, for talking sake, or TV, the bad guy or the criminal could be portrayed as skinhead, tattoos, big, brash, loud, certain mannerisms. So people who are in ignorance, that don't think critically and logically, will build and believe in that stereotypical view. So they come into contact with somebody like me, and they don't have a conversation of me and them in the moment. They're having a conversation based on this image of who they think I am. And the communication can break down. It can cause so many problems in communication because of these preconceived notions and ideas. That's why I always say to people, let's deal with logic and fact and reason, and stay away from subjectivity, because people are so loaded in their subjective experience that communication is a problem. So we need this subjective language in order to eradicate that, irrational behaviour. And people who are trying to use these words and use propaganda to affect you, you should be very careful of. As I pointed out, words like Satanism, you view the content for yourself. Read the book, make your own decisions. Don't let the power of the word influence you. You may be missing out on something that helps your progression because of that. It's very important. And it's the same with communication. Try and understand, you're judging somebody by their looks, by what they're wearing, what they do as a job. These are issues that we need to resolve. They're not going to help us to progress. So they were just two examples that I've used because that's been happening in my experience now. Propaganda can evolve and influence you with words and associations, as people evolve and things change as well. You need to be careful of that and always question yourself about how you're thinking and analysing things based on your own preconceived notions and ideas. It's a powerful thing, and it's very powerful, and it can be used against you when you don't realise it. And again, you need to take responsibility. Words and symbols and these things don't have any intrinsic property or value. They're no potions, they're not chemicals. They don't make you think or feel anything. Only when you're in ignorance. The way you feel in regards to these, the power of these words, is your own creation. based on the associations that you built to the words. You gave them meaning. It's you that defines what the words mean to you. Just as I said about flat earth before, I'll define what flat earth means. You don't get to label me with what you think flat earth means. So you could see that in the whole arena. As soon as you question the globe, you're a flat earther and you're labelled with this title and you're blah, blah, blah. That's part of the tools, that's how they operate. We need to get to the bones of this and how it's actually working. Again, it should be based on logic and facts. Anybody who's trying to manipulate you and propagandise and keep you away from certain subjects, you should be suspicious. And this video that I'm putting on at the end highlights that, greatly for me. So I hope you enjoy. I could have used other examples, but I'm just using them briefly. I think that the beginning video and this one at the end will speak for themselves. And please apply it to everything that's happening and in your own life at the moment. There's a lot to be learned here. Peace.
The human voice. It's the instrument we all play. It's the most powerful sound in the world, probably. It's the only one that can start a war or say, I love you. And yet many people have the experience that when they speak, people don't listen to them. Why is that? How can we speak powerfully to make change in the world? What I'd like to suggest, there are a number of habits that we need to move away from. I've assembled for your pleasure here 7 deadly sins of speaking. I'm not pretending this is an exhaustive list, but these 7, I think, are pretty large. Habits that we can all fall into. First, gossip. Speaking ill of somebody who's not present. Not a nice habit, and we know perfectly well the person gossiping 5 minutes later will be gossiping about us. Second, judging. We know people who are like this in conversation, and it's very hard to listen to somebody if you know that you're being judged and found wanting at the same time. Third, negativity. You can fall into this. My mother, in the last years of her life, became very, very negative, and it's hard to listen. I remember one day I said to her, it's October the 1st today, and she said, I know, isn't it dreadful? It's hard to listen when somebody's that negative. And another form of negativity, complaining. Well, this is the national art of the UK. It's our national sport. We complain about the weather, about sport, about politics, about everything. But actually complaining is viral misery. It's not spreading sunshine and lightness in the world. Excuses. We've all met this guy. Maybe we've all been this guy. Some people have a blame thrower. They just pass it on to everybody else and don't take responsibility for their actions. And again, hard to listen to somebody who's being like that. Penultimate, the 6th of the 7, embroidery, exaggeration. It demeans our language, actually, sometimes. For example, if I see something that really is awesome, what do I call it? And then, of course, this exaggeration becomes lying, out-and-out lying, and we don't want to listen to people we know are lying to us. And finally, dogmatism. The confusion of facts with opinions. When those two things get conflated, you're listening into the wind. Somebody is bombarding you with their opinions as if they were true. It's difficult to listen to that. So here they are, 7 deadly sins of speaking. These are things I think we need to avoid. But is there a positive way to think about this? Yes, there is. I'd like to suggest that there are 4 really powerful cornerstones, foundations, that we can stand on if we want our speech to be powerful and to make change in the world. Fortunately, these things spell a word. The word is hail, and it has a great definition as well. I'm not talking about the stuff that falls from the sky and hits you on the head. I'm talking about this definition, to greet or acclaim enthusiastically, which is, I think, how our words will be received if we stand on these 4 things. So what do they stand for? See if you can guess. The H, honesty, of course. Being true in what you say, being straight and clear. The A is authenticity, just being yourself. A friend of mine described it as standing in your own truth, which I think is a lovely way to put it. The I is integrity, being your word, actually doing what you say, and being somebody people can trust. And the L is love. I don't mean romantic love. but I do mean wishing people well. For two reasons. First of all, I think absolute honesty may not be what we want. I mean, my goodness, you look ugly this morning. Perhaps that's not necessary. Tempered with love, of course, honesty is a great thing. But also, if you're really wishing somebody well, it's very hard to judge them at the same time. I'm not even sure you can do those two things simultaneously. So hail. Also, now that's what you say, and it's like the old song, it is what you say, it's also the way that you say it. You have an amazing toolbox. This instrument is incredible, and yet this is a toolbox that very few people have ever opened. I'd like to have a little rummage in there with you now, and just pull a few tools out that you might like to take away and play with, which will increase the power of your speaking. Register, for example. Now, falsetto register may not be very useful most of the time, but there's a register in between. I'm not going to get very technical about this for any of you who are voice coaches. You can locate your voice, however. So if I talk up here in my nose, you can hear the difference. If I go down here in my throat, which is where most of us speak from most of the time, but if you want weight, you need to go down here to the chest. You hear the difference? We vote for politicians with lower voices. It's true, because we associate depth with power and with authority. That's register. And we have timbre. It's the way your voice feels. Again, the research shows that we prefer voices which are rich, smooth, warm, like hot chocolate. Well, if that's not you, that's not the end of the world, because you can train. Go get a voice coach. And there are amazing things you can do with breathing, with posture, and with exercises to improve the timbre of your voice. Then prosody. I love prosody. This is the sing-song, the meta-language that we use in order to impart meaning. It's route one for meaning in conversation. People who speak all on one note are really quite hard to listen to if they don't have any prosody at all. That's where the word monotonic comes from, or monotonous, monotone. Also, we have repetitive prosody now coming in, where every sentence ends as if it were a question, when it's actually not a question, it's a statement. And if you repeat that one over and over, it's actually restricting your ability to communicate through prosody, which I think is a shame. So let's try and break that habit. Pace. I can get very, very excited by saying something really, really quickly, or I can slow right down to emphasize. And at the end of that, of course, is our old friend, silence. There's nothing wrong with a bit of silence in a talk, is there? We don't have to fill it with ums and ahs. It can be very powerful. Of course, pitch often goes along with pace to indicate arousal, but you can do it just with pitch. Where did you leave my keys? Where did you leave my keys? It's a slightly different meaning in those two deliveries. And finally, volume. I can get really excited by using volume, sorry about that if I startled anybody, or I can have you really pay attention by getting very quiet. Some people broadcast the whole time. Try not to do that. That's called sodcasting. Imposing your sound on people around you carelessly and inconsiderately. Not nice. Of course, where this all comes into play most of all is when you've got something really important to do. It might be standing on a stage like this and giving a talk to people. It might be proposing marriage, asking for a raise, a wedding speech, whatever it is. If it's really important, you owe it to yourself to look at this toolbox and the engine that it's going to work on. And no engine works well without being warmed up. Warm up your voice. Actually, let me show you how to do that. Would you all like to stand up for a moment? I'm going to show you the 6 vocal warm-up exercises that I do before every talk I ever do. Anytime you're going to talk to anybody important, do these. First, arms up, deep breath in, and sigh out, like that. One more time. Very good. Now we're going to warm up our lips, and we're going to go bop, 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 bop. Very good. And now, just like when you were a kid. Now your lips should be coming alive. We're going to do the tongue next with exaggerated la, 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 la. Beautiful. You're getting really good at this. And then roll an R. That's like champagne for the tongue. Finally, and if I can only do one, the pros call this the siren. It's really good. It starts with we and goes to or. The we is high, the or is low. So you go Fantastic. Give yourselves a round of applause. Take a seat. Thank you. Next time you speak, do those in advance. Now, let me just put this in context to close. This is a serious point here. This is where we are now, right? We speak not very well into people who simply aren't listening in an environment that's all about noise and bad acoustics. I have talked about that on this stage in different phases. What would the world be like if we were speaking powerfully to people who are listening consciously in environments which were actually fit for purpose? Or to make that a bit larger, what would the world be like if we were creating sound consciously and consuming sound consciously and designing all our environments consciously for sound? That would be a world that does sound beautiful, and one where understanding would be the norm. And that is an idea worth spreading. Thank you. Thank you.